Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Dr. DrUmaNaidoo, and I am delighted to be able to participate in the GI Summit. I am based at Harvard Medical School in Boston, where I'm the Director of Nutritional and Lifestyle Psychiatry at Massachusetts General Hospital, one of the teaching hospitals at Harvard Medical School. The first point I'd like to share with you is that the brain is body royalty. In the average adult human, the brain represents about 2% of the body weight. Yet, despite its relatively small size, the brain accounts for about 20% of the oxygen and hence calories consumed by the body. That is, it consumes about 20% of glucose-derived energy. Now, you might ask why this is important. Well, I think that one of the missing gaps in our discussions with doctors and clinicians is that we go in and speak about having gained a few pounds. Perhaps we have a family history of diabetes or concerned about a cholesterol level. But no one is making the connection between how we eat and how we feel emotionally. And this is where the gut-brain axis and microbiome, as well as the function of the brain, becomes extremely important. The implications actually become that energy-efficient food can boost our brain's energy, our body health, as well as our overall well-being. And I would add, our mental well-being. Another aspect of an implication is that in the current times in which we're living, stress, burnout, anxiety, and depression can all be addressed by addressing how we eat. It is not a one-size-fits-all, and it is not the only solution, but it is one of the tools in our toolkit. I am an allopathic trained physician. I prescribe medications, and medications have certainly saved the lives of many of my mentally ill patients. But I would also share with you that food, nutrition, and how we eat is an incredibly powerful tool that we can all use alongside any other means of treatment that your physician prescribes. I'd like to share what nutritional psychiatry is. While it is a nascent term, many of us have been practicing using the impact of nutrition and mental health for some time. I have created this as a way to share that nutritional psychiatry offers clinical guidelines based on nutrition science and evidence-based research for the use of whole foods and nutrients to improve mental well-being. A few years ago, I was featured in a weekend article published in the Wall Street Journal. And what I found fascinating was I did a very long interview with the wonderful reporter who wrote this article. And one of the things she picked up on was a comment that I made, which is that nutritional psychiatry is not about 10 milligrams of Prozac or 10 blueberries. And I always quote that because it actually does share with someone what we are not talking about. It's not either or, it's not medications or food. It's really the combination of what works for the individual. And because of the mostly unique microbiome that we each have, I would even go so far as to say that personalizing a nutritional psychiatry treatment plan has become a very, very vital part of my practice these days. Now, a long time ago, Hippocrates shared that all diseases begin in the gut and death sits in the bowel. I think this was a very meaningful statement, and I share it very often because he was clearly on to that connection between the gut and the brain. In early development, the enteric nervous system was discovered in the middle of the 19th century. It is entirely derived from neural crest cells, which migrate to the gut and maintain connections to the brain. The rationale of the gut-brain connection in mental health are based on things like embryology, that the gut and the brain actually originate from those neural crest cells in the embryo. Anatomically, throughout life, these organs remain connected by the 10th cranial nerve called the vagus nerve, which I like to call a two-way superhighway because of the bidirectional flow of messages back and forth between the brain and the gut and the brain. Neurochemically, there are chemical signals which are transmitted, and pathologically, there are actually diseases which indicate to us also that there's this connection. Looking at physiological perspectives, one of the things we should remember is that there are at least 100 million neurons in the gut, and that the gut peptides influence hypothalamic pathways. I would also say that this particular study quoted shares that the gut-brain axis and this interface through the use and connection of the vagus nerve senses the microbiota metabolites through its afferents and transfers this gut information to the central nervous system. The integration in the central autonomic network can generate a response, and it can be cholinergic and anti-inflammatory pathways which are modulated in the microbiota. And stress inhibits the vagus nerve in situations such as inflammatory bowel disease and IBD. This is just a diagram to indicate the anatomical connection and to share that the vagus nerve runs from the brain directly and encompasses the gut. This particular study really looked more closely at the neurochemical and electrical connections between the gut and the brain. Why is it therefore that we often call the gut the second brain? Now, there are approximately 39 trillion odd microbes in the microbiome, and there are different types of microbes. While we know this, we wonder why it is that the gut is considered to be the second brain. Now, some of what I've shared already will indicate to you that there's a reason that these two parts of the body are both connected. And when gut bacteria change, the signals to and from the brain change as well. And so it is often called the second brain. Some functions of healthy gut bacteria include breakdown of complex carbohydrates, production of vitamins and nutrients, production of short-chain fatty acids, extremely vital to our physical and mental health, protection against pathogens, helping to train the immune system, supporting detoxification, and modulating the nervous system. Another point that I think is very important to know is that a very large part of our immune system is also located in the gut. Moving on now, we also see that anatomically, these are the connections, and we understand that there's this very immediate interface between the gut lining, the afferents, the nervous system, and then ultimately a connection through the vagus nerve as one of the ways that the gut and the brain remain connected. Now, another important thing for people to understand is that serotonin is often called the happiness hormone. And some of the medications that psychiatrists and other doctors prescribe include selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Examples of these include medications such as Prozac or Zoloft, otherwise called fluoxetine or sertraline. There's several others as well. They act through serotonin, but 90% or more of the serotonin receptors are found in the gut. Another way which helps you understand that close connection between where food is being digested and its connection to impacting serotonin receptors. Now, one of the important things to understand in the gut-brain health is that dysbiosis or inflammation of the gut has been linked to causing several mental illnesses, including anxiety and depression. And one of the ways that dysbiosis gets set up is by how we eat. Now, there are multiple factors which cause and affect dysbiosis, but food is one of those things. So if we're eating a fast food, junk food diet full of processed and ultra-processed foods, which contain colorants, dyes, food stabilizers, and preservatives, they definitely impact the gut in a certain way. Also, refined sugars, trans fats are some of the problematic foods. What happens is that inflammation gets set up in the gut, and the influence of the good microbes get overcome by the bad microbes in the gut. And when the bad microbes overthrow the good microbes, what happens is that we get set up for inflammation in the gut. Studies have also shown that probiotics were effective in lowering anxiety and depression symptoms similar to traditional prescription medications. Why do I say that? Because again, it speaks to sources of probiotics through foods, such as fermented foods, which actually could impact this exact factor. So how we eat is directly correlated to the setup of dysbiosis or inflammation in the gut lining. And this is a slide which just further emphasizes what I said about serotonin being a very large component in terms of the receptors being found in the gut. This particular study spoke to the role of inflammation in the gut microbiome in depression and anxiety, and is worth reading and perhaps reviewing in terms of understanding why this connection in nutritional psychiatry is so important. I would also share with you that of the many things we should be concerned about right now, while cancer and heart disease continue to be some of the leading diagnoses in the world, I feel that metabolic diseases are so much on the rise. And a combination of the triad of insulin resistance, oxidative stress, and inflammation are contributing to this factor in mental health that becomes extremely important because of a few facts that I will share shortly, but also the fact that some of the medications that are prescribed, if a person is taking medications, may actually impact insulin resistance and metabolic health. And it really becomes finding a solution for creating a balance of useful treatments for the individual. And in mental illness, one of the things I would share is that individuals living with a serious mental illness face an increased risk of having chronic medical conditions. And adults living with a serious illness die on an average 25 years earlier than other Americans, largely due to treatable medical conditions. So, making the point that we really need to understand what is going on with our metabolic health. And one of the things that impacts that is not only our GI health, our gut microbiome and the gut-brain axis, medications that we might be taking, stress, and so many other factors. I would just also share that the context of gut-brain health and mental well-being becomes extremely important during COVID. And that during COVID in the United States, one of the very scary statistics that was shared by the CDC just a few months ago was that during the ongoing pandemic, approximately 11% of Americans considered suicide, speaking to how desperately depressed, sad, uncertain, fearful, and anxious that people are feeling amongst other symptoms. And I would share that, the evidence base for these conditions are really about finding a multifactorial approach, which includes different types of diets, includes the research behind it, understanding the impact of the very powerful gut microbiome, and finding personalized nutritional psychiatry solutions which improve GI health and improve therefore mental well-being. I think it's less about the calorie counting, the actual diet that you're following, but actually the eating of whole healthy foods so that you embrace a solution that relates to your mental well-being. And why do I say that? As a psychiatrist during these times, our mental health has become so critically important. I have explained to you that there's this physiological, anatomical, biochemical, and neurochemical connection between the gut and the brain and the brain and the gut. What we eat through the process of digestion, therefore, impacts our physical health through the gut microbiome, but then our mental health as well. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and it has been a pleasure speaking with you today.